Chapter 7. The Fifth Month, Emotional and Mental Changes. Naruto stood in front of the full-length mirror in Ino's apartment, staring at his own reflection. It had become a ritual of sorts for him, each day looking at himself and wondering what new changes he would find. The months had passed slowly, each day bringing subtle yet undeniable shifts, both in his physical appearance and, more disturbingly, his emotions. His body was now completely different from the one he had lived in for most of his life. The strong, muscular frame of the boy who had trained tirelessly to become Hokage was gone. In its place was a body that mirrored Ino's in almost every way. His torso had slimmed down even further, his waist so narrow that it looked delicate, while his hips had widened to match Ino's perfectly. The curves were prominent now, unmistakably feminine. His chest had developed noticeably, small but undeniable breasts now rising subtly beneath the tank top Ino had given him. His legs, once muscular and defined, had become slender, his thighs more rounded, his calves shapely. But none of that was as unsettling as what had happened to his manhood. Naruto's heart sank every time he looked down. It had shrunk so much that it was nearly flat, barely a trace left of what used to be there. He had avoided thinking about it for as long as possible, but now there was no escaping the reality. His body was completely betraying him, changing in ways he couldn't stop. Today, however, wasn't just about the physical changes. Something deeper, something more unsettling was happening to him. His emotions were all over the place, and he didn't know why. He had always been brash, impulsive, quick to act without thinking. But lately, he found himself feeling different, more introspective, more sensitive. He had caught himself feeling things that he never used to feel. Small things, like the way the wind felt against his skin, or the soft warmth of the sun on his face. They seemed to affect him on a deeper level now, as if his mind was processing the world in a completely new way. Ino's voice pulled him from his thoughts. Naruto, are you ready? She called from the other room. Naruto blinked, shaking his head slightly as he turned away from the mirror. Yeah, I'm coming, he said, his voice still light and feminine, a sound he was slowly getting used to. He made his way out of the room, feeling the soft fabric of the black leggings and white crop top that Ino had given him a few days ago. Every step felt foreign, his body moving with a grace that he hadn't had before. When he entered the living room, Ino was waiting for him, her eyes scanning him with a mixture of sympathy and determination. "Are you sure you're okay with this?" she asked, her voice gentle but firm. "I know this is a lot, but you can't keep wearing my clothes forever. You need your own." Naruto sighed, running a hand through his long, platinum blonde hair. I know. It's just weird." Ino smiled softly. "I get it. But you deserve to feel comfortable in what you're wearing, even if everything else feels out of control right now." Naruto nodded, though the knot in his stomach still tightened at the thought of going shopping for women's clothes. He had never imagined that his life would come to this, standing in Ino's apartment, wearing her clothes, looking like her twin. But here he was, and there was no escaping it anymore. "Let's just get this over with," Naruto muttered, grabbing the small purse Ino had lent him. The very act of carrying a purse felt humiliating, but it was practical now. His old ninja pouch no longer fit around his waist, and Ino's purse had enough space for the essentials. Ino led the way out of the apartment, and they walked through the village in silence. Naruto kept his head down, avoiding eye contact with the villagers they passed. He could feel their curious stares, hear the whispers as they noticed him. He had tried to keep a low profile, but with his body now so obviously feminine, it was impossible to go unnoticed. People were starting to talk, starting to wonder who this new girl was, and why Naruto Uzumaki hadn't been seen in weeks. The marketplace was bustling with activity by the time they arrived. Naruto's heart raced as they walked through the crowd, his senses heightened to every glance, every whisper. Ino had insisted on bringing him to a boutique that specialized in women's clothing, a place Naruto had never even noticed before. The shop's windows were filled with colorful dresses, skirts, and blouses, all of them so delicate and feminine that Naruto felt a wave of nausea just looking at them. Ino pushed open the door, the small bell above it chiming as they stepped inside. The shop was cozy, with racks of clothes neatly arranged and soft music playing in the background. Naruto felt completely out of place. "Let's start with some basics," Ino said, her voice calm and reassuring. "We'll get you some stuff that's comfortable, but still looks good. You don't have to wear anything too fancy." Naruto nodded, though his mind was racing. He didn't know what was worse, the fact that he needed new clothes, or the fact that he was starting to care about what he wore. His emotions were all over the place, and he didn't understand why. Normally, he would have shrugged this off, made a joke about it, and moved on. But now everything felt more intense, more personal. Ino started pulling clothes off the racks, holding them up to Naruto and nodding thoughtfully. "These should fit you perfectly," she said, handing him a pair of slim-fitting jeans and a soft, pastel-colored sweater. "Try these on. I'll grab a few more options." Naruto took the clothes, his hands trembling slightly as he headed to the dressing room. He closed the door behind him, staring down at the clothes in his hands. They were so normal, so feminine. He swallowed hard, trying to push down the rising tide of emotion that threatened to overwhelm him. As he undressed and slid into the new clothes, something strange happened. The jeans fit perfectly, hugging his hips and thighs in a way that felt oddly comfortable. The sweater was soft against his skin, and when he looked at himself in the mirror, he didn't hate what he saw. He looked normal, like any other girl in the village. And that realization hit him like a punch to the gut. Naruto stared at his reflection, his chest tightening as the weight of everything came crashing down on him. He wasn't Naruto Uzumaki anymore. Not physically, not emotionally. He was becoming someone else, and there was nothing he could do to stop it. His body had changed, his emotions had changed, and now he was starting to feel like someone else entirely. His vision blurred as tears welled up in his eyes, and before he could stop himself, they spilled over, rolling down his cheeks. He hadn't cried in years, not since Jiraiya's death. But now, standing in a dressing room, wearing clothes that weren't his, he couldn't hold it back anymore. The frustration, the fear, the confusion, it all came pouring out in a torrent of emotion that he couldn't control. He pressed his hands to his face, trying to stifle the sobs, but it was no use. The tears kept coming, his body shaking with the force of it. He felt like he was unraveling, like everything he had ever known about himself was slipping away. A soft knock on the door startled him, and he quickly wiped his eyes, trying to pull himself together. "Naruto!" Ino's voice was gentle, filled with concern. "Are you okay?" Naruto cleared his throat, his voice shaky as he tried to respond. "Yeah, I'm fine." Ino didn't sound convinced. "Can I come in?" Naruto hesitated for a moment before unlocking the door. Ino stepped inside, her eyes immediately going to his tear-streaked face. Without a word, she closed the door behind her and pulled him into a tight hug. Naruto tensed at first, But then something inside him broke, and he leaned into her, burying his face in her shoulder as the sobs returned. Ino held him close, her arms wrapped around him as she whispered soothing words into his ear. "It's okay. It's okay. Naruto. It's okay to feel like this. You've been through so much, and it's all so confusing. But you're not alone. I'm here." Naruto clung to her, his chest heaving as he cried, the weight of everything he had been holding in for the past 5 months, everything he hadn't wanted to admit to himself, finally spilled out. The fear of losing himself, the frustration of not being able to control his own body, the confusion over who he was becoming. It was all too much. "I don't know who I am anymore," Naruto whispered, his voice barely audible. "I don't feel like myself. I don't even know if I'm me anymore." Ino pulled back slightly, looking into his tear-filled eyes. "You're still you. Naruto. No matter what changes, no matter how different you look or feel, you're still the same person inside. You're still the boy who never gave up, who fought for his friends, who wanted to be Hokage. That hasn't changed." Naruto shook his head, choking back another sob. "But what if it does change? What if I'm not that person anymore? What if I'm someone else?" Ina's expression softened, and she gently cupped his face in her hands. "You're going through something unimaginable right now, and it's okay to be scared. It's okay to feel lost. But you're not going to lose yourself. Naruto. I won't let you." Naruto stared at her, his heart aching with a mixture of gratitude and despair. He wanted to believe her, wanted to believe that he could hold on to who he was. But with every passing day, it felt like he was slipping further and further away from the person he used to be. I don't know how to stop it," Naruto whispered, his voice trembling. "I don't know how to stop becoming her?" Ino smiled sadly, brushing a strand of hair away from his face. "Maybe you don't have to stop it. Maybe. Maybe you just need to find a way to accept it." Naruto's breath hitched. "Accept it? How can I accept this? I'm not supposed to be like this." "I know." Ino nodded, her expression understanding. "I know it's hard. I can't imagine what you're going through. But fighting it, hating yourself for it, is only going to make things worse. Naruto. I'm not saying you have to like it. But maybe you can find a way to live with it." Naruto didn't know what to say. The idea of accepting what was happening to him, of living with it, felt impossible. But deep down, he knew Ino was right. He couldn't keep fighting himself. It was exhausting, and it was tearing him apart. He wiped his eyes, taking a deep, shaky breath. "I don't know if I can do that." Ino squeezed his hand. "You don't have to do it alone. I'm here. We'll figure this out together." Naruto nodded, though the weight of the changes still pressed heavily on his chest. The road ahead felt uncertain, filled with more questions than answers. But for the first time in months, he didn't feel completely alone.